What's up, everyone? Dash here after a historic victory for the Oceanic region, and I am joined by none other than Pabu. Pabu, it has been a marathon of a day. We went all the way to the 7th game and the tiebreak, but you ended up pulling it out. Just give me your initial reactions to pushing yourselves through to the Rumble stage.
I'm so bloody proud of the boys, honestly. Like, after our first game versus you all today, it was really rough, and we played with lots of fear, and we didn't go. But then we played the next game as RNG, and we just sent it, and then we just sent it again and again, and, you know, we win the games.
That has become the theme of the day, just sending it. And that RNG game, even though it was a loss, was one of the most exciting and entertaining of the day. But I do want to refocus in towards your matchup against UOL, because ultimately the matchup against UOL is what determined it. But it was essentially a best of 5. Strewn over multiple days, and you took it in 3-2 fashion. Break it down for me from start to finish. How did it evolve over the days?
So going into the start of the event, we really didn't have much idea of how to draft the game. We hadn't played, we hadn't scrimmed for weeks after our playoffs because no one in us was scrimming. We can't play anyone else, so we didn't really know what was going on. And so we kind of just got gapped in a few drafts. And then we figured out a good draft and we played it and we won. And then we didn't really have an answer to Nidalee, so we just started nuking the jungle pool. I'm a really flexible player. I have a really deep champion pool. So as soon as we started getting a Nanosick off his comfort, he couldn't really do anything inside of the games. He picked Lee Sin and Kha'Zix, and both of those champions are just absolutely not real. So as soon as I was playing to my strengths and he was off of his comfort, it was just really easy. And all the boys played more confidently throughout the games. As we ramped up, our engages were better, our engages were faster. We just started, getting things going. We took fights on our terms, and they would always make mistakes with positioning. So, we punished them, and we just had some better drafts come into the later side, allowed us to pull it through.
Grew into your own throughout the stage for sure. You mentioned your own flexibility in jungle pool, but we got to also talk about some of the flexibility shown by other teammates. Most notably, I'm looking at the mid lane, the Zed catching everyone off guard. Where did that come from?
Jesse just said to me, he's like, I'm pretty sure if we play AP jungle and AD mid, we'll just always win. And he didn't know what to pick. And he's like, what do I play here? And he's like, I'm pretty sure Zed's broken. And he hasn't played the champion in 6 months. We've never scrimmed it. We haven't touched it, but I don't know. We've been talking about it. It's it's at the top of LS's tier list. It's dominating solo queue.
It's at the top of your tier list. We know that now.
I've lost way too many games to 420 Weeaboo Slayer. So you just have to slam the lock in. And we played the game well, and it was really hype.
All right. Well, again, super impressive across the board. You kind of mentioned some of the obstacles that the team has had to work against. Again, the region itself kind of gets disassembled. You guys ultimately come out of it, and then without those kinds of practice partners, why is it that you think that this set of guys, this team, this time around was able to achieve what you've been unable to achieve before in the past?
I think other teams before have had really good chances of coming through, and honestly, it's almost a bit of a disappointment that they didn't, because I think they had some really talented rosters in the past, the Mammoth rosters have passed, the Legacy one we sent recently, all really good and all came pretty close. But I don't think there's much that sets us apart. I just think that having a good environment is really cracked for sure. The way that we recover from our games and are able to adapt and not go into it with no tilt, our heads are always up. It just really allows us to, kind of reset and take every game as it is.
All right, well, I got one more question for you, and that's all about looking forward. First time you're going to the Rumble stage. Well, a little bit about what your expectations are for you guys as a team, and when you look at the other two groups, maybe who do you expect to get out, as well as who do you expect to really be putting up fights against in terms of trying to make it even further?
I think it's really hard to challenge against top teams. I think we're all super excited to play against Damwon Gaming. But I hope Cloud9 makes it through, because I really like playing against Cloud9. They just play the game super fast and super aggressively, so it's fun to play against. But I think it's a huge learning experience for us. We don't get this opportunity to play against international teams very often. And yeah, just the geography of Australia kind of limits us in that area. So it's a huge learning experience for us, and hopefully we'll just improve over the course of the tournament and, make it back to Worlds.
Well, the improvement has already been evident. Pabu, the only person in the esports industry that gives me hair envy. It's been a pleasure to speak with you. I want to congratulate you again on an absolutely historic victory.
Thank you.
Keep it up, man. Go celebrate, not too hard, maybe only one shoey for this victory, and then we'll see you in the Rumble stage. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Beautiful, man.
Welcome to the MSI Cooldown. Clement, when I say Aussie, Aussie, Aussie.
Oi, oi, oi!
Yes, okay, we tried to time the latency as best as possible. Pabu was so ecstatic and so damned Australian. bloody proud of the boys. As a South African that has a long and tenuous history competing against Australians in sports, it's great to see the excitement. Look, congratulations to the LCO and Pentanet GG. They advance with RNG to the Rumble stage. Before we talk about RNG, Clement is joining me to talk about this tiebreaker game. It felt very tense at the beginning. Before we get some gameplay, what do you make of the draft? What did you think of the Kazakhs versus Karthus matchup?
I felt like the Karthus was actually genius because if you look at the lanes and their states, like Penta had 3 pushing lanes, and the Kazakhs, even though on paper it should win against the Karthus 1v1, he doesn't really get much chances to actually go in and invade. None of his lanes are really supporting him in that factor, and you can see PGG just start snowballing from the lanes themselves. Bot lane is winning early on, top lane gets the gank to equalize things, and mid lane Lee Sin is going to be able to outtrade Victor because he is a complete manaless champion. So the Karthus was really the cherry on top. I think it was a really, really smart play, and just like Pabu said, it really kind of dissected what Anonysix have been trying so far. As Anonysix, he has those pocket champions for himself, but they don't always work out.
No, it really didn't. And even though Anonysix has a lot of games on Kazakhs, is very experienced, it didn't work out today. I don't know how much you watch the player cams, Clement, but when I was looking at the UOL faces, they looked more drained. They looked more tired, and Lodic in particular really felt like the weight of the day. It's a difficult task. 4 games in a day, playing 8 games in the group stage. I mean, do you think the mentality and the preparation, or maybe the mindset of approaching these games and the weight of expectations weighed on UOL?
I definitely think so. I do not think UOL actually played to their fullest potential. I think they looked very, very lost by the last set of games. We heard it from Coach Sheepy as well. They didn't really know where they were trying to go with the game 4 draft that they played out of this quote-unquote best of 5 as well. And I felt like in the last game, because they didn't have a clear scaling advantage against a really smart and well-drafted count by Penta GG, where they have 3 different lanes that are all AD physical focused, and then a hyper-scaling jungler that is AP focused. I feel like they wanted to rush at some points, and then they tried to pull back at some points as well. And it just felt like they didn't have a coherent game plan going into the last set of games. So unfortunately for UOL, I think they have great players, they have great experience, but they weren't able to synthesize that all together into a coherent game plan against Penta GG that, you know, maybe had less tricks, but they knew what they wanted to do.
I also think adaptability is crucially important here. Dash was really, really great during the interview with Sheepy a little earlier today, talking about the Unicorns of Love journey. They were not as dominant as they were in the 2020 season. They had to fight hard to earn the spot here to MSI. And we just heard from Pabu, who was talking about the difficulties. No real scrim partners back in Oceania. They had to learn and adapt. And ultimately, it is what allowed them to win today. Now, Clement, I'm going to make you work a little bit more before we talk about RNG. And in the Mercedes Drive to Victory that is presented by Mercedes, this is an ace in the top side for Pentanet. It was followed by the Baron. This is what sealed the deal in my mind for PGG.
Yeah, this was the fight where PGG, they do have a lot of early lanes that can come in earlier, and Decoy played the best game of this tournament so far. The flash in into the exhaust was really nice, and we have to talk about this composition. The Lee Sin is actually such a hard counter to what Unicorns want to do. The reveal can actually find out where the Kaisa is. It can see where the Kazakhs is coming in as well. So the last 2 draft picks from Pentanet were just so incredibly clever. It rounded out their comp really well. It took away the pure scaling advantage that Unicorns of Love have enjoyed in the previous games, and it just left Unicorns of Love with no options. They wanted to go forward, they wanted to go back. I think there was no better expression than No Man's in that last fight. He was kind of stuck between what am I supposed to do right now, and that was just the game for Unicorns.
It really was. I mean, commiserations to the Unicorns of Love. They have been a mainstay at the international tournaments, but unfortunately today they have been eliminated. And just before we move on, I do want to celebrate just one last player. I thought it was a fantastic interview by Pabu to close out the day. It is the first time that the Oceanic players and the LCO advanced to the international stage. And I have to highlight how impressive this player has been. He has been a bright spot in development, in adaptation. He was on a hair's breadth of being eliminated. And I just have to commend the fantastic, bright, happy feelings that Pabu is bringing to the stage. Exceptionally well done. Kevin is yelling at me in my ears. And now, Clement, I want to turn to you to ask, look, RNG did not get tested at all. Let's not kid ourselves, right? They were simply at several levels above both Pentanet and UOL. As we look ahead to the Rumble stage and the likely teams to face them, who will give RNG the most difficult challenge? And do you believe RNG are the tournament favorites?
I do believe as of now that RNG are the tournament favorites overall. I think their body of work proves it for themselves. They can take it very, very fast, which is something that, I think you can kind of question if Damwon can do it too, as well, as they play significantly slower in their own domestic region. But overall, whenever I'm looking at any people that can challenge RNG, top lane is always the #1 threat to them. As we've said, domestically, they've only lost to teams that have the caliber of top laners like Zoom and Nuguri. So if I had to pick, I think Armut from Mad Lions and Khan from Danwon are going to be the two top laners and the two teams that pose the biggest threat to RNG.
I'm actually really happy because I was wondering if you would have included Armut in the list without me needing to prompt you. His Wukong is obviously a very strong pick. His Lee Sin was very impressive. I thought when you see the Master of the Champion, it looked great. If you were to rank those 3 top laners, who is your first, second, and third?
I actually think that Xiaohu is just the best top laner, and he's probably the best mid laner on that list as well.
And the best Lucian.
I know this is his... Yes, I know this is his first split as a top laner, but even in the LPL, he's consistently beating out guys like Flandre. He's consistently beating out guys like Bin that was in the World Finals, and he also won the series against the Shy. So Xiao is actually just an extraordinary player. He's not just this sort of gimmicky top laner that plays Orianna or takes 80 carries into the top lane. He actually has a very good understanding of the lane itself. And we've heard throughout this split, he's had a lot of help from other LPL top laners. He has very, very long friendships with guys like Let Me, with guys like Zoom, and they help him prep and help him become a better top laner. So I think we should start to recognize and respect Xiaohu as that top laner in his own right.
I mean, and you know what? His performance today when he subbed into that mid lane was so good, he could even roll swap to mid lane. I think he's that good. Let's turn our attention to tomorrow.
Xiaohu could roll swap to every single lane and be the best. I'm sorry.
I agree with you. I agree with you, Clement. Let's take a look at Group B's schedule tomorrow. It will be, of course, the Mad Lions, Wildcats, Talon, and Pain taking to the Rift. The assumption here is that Mad Lions as well as Talon will advance. I know you already have a soft spot for Talon based on your geographic location and history, but if somebody were to upset Talon, would it be Pain or the Wildcats?
I honestly don't see either of them really upsetting. If I had to pick one, I think Wildcats maybe have a better chance. I think that, traditionally PSG's biggest weakness is that they have this sort of inability to deal with split pushing top laners. Sanabi has been sort of this weak side top laner his entire life. And honestly, going back all the way to the Flash Wolves era, that has been their sort of weakness into the 1-3-1 teams. So if I had to pick between the teams, I think that we have Wildcats and their top laner coming over Robo and Pain.
Okay, very final question, Clement. Mad Lions first, Talon second, or the other way around? How will it end?
Oh man, this is the $1 million question. Personally, I am leaning towards PSG. I think that Mad Lion, even though they had a very dominant game against PSG, finishing it off in less than 28 minutes, the mistakes from PSG were very obvious. Their newest player, Dago, was completely out of position. They had a draft that needed to snowball early. And if you look at Mad Lion's other 2 games that went on very, very long, they were almost close to 40-minute games. I feel like this is a team that isn't always the cleanest at times, and PSG for me, with River on Rumble doing great things, and with the 4-man core between Kai Wing and Maple having that much experience, I think they actually can play the cleaner mid game to take the final game of the day and possibly the tiebreaker as well.
Clement, I love what you want to happen, but it's not going to happen. Talon will take second, Mad Lions will take first. Clement, it has been such a pleasure having you on the show today. Thank you so much. We are done for the time being. Ender's already headed home. Thank you to our casters over in the LCS studio. Thank you to everybody watching. It has been an interesting, weird, and wonderful day, but history was made. Goodbye, Clement. Goodbye, everybody at home. We'll see you back tomorrow for MSI 2021. Telecom continue to rule the world. Uzi goes godlike.